today. Hopefully good. It's been a little bit since we've been here. I think it's been like 2 weeks. I was filming a different kind of video that was more makeup related, and then I was editing it, and then I was bored and I decided I didn't like it, so then I never posted it. Probably will never post it. And then that was just that. I don't know. Hopefully this video is up for Monday because I actually don't have a lot of time to get it done, so we shall see. Yes, I've been busy with school. My semester is officially done, so maybe the next couple weeks I'll be a little more consistent. That is my goal. We will see. Yes. But yes, today we are back with our regular scheduled programming. We're back here today and we're going to be talking about another true crime thing. And I kind of stumbled upon this case just like not even on purpose. I was literally just watching YouTube one day and I went down this like weird rabbit hole of YouTube videos and ended up watching like short clips of like dating shows and different like reality TV shows. And this guy was doing an interview on the show and like talked about how his dad was like murdered, and so I was like, I want to look into this. That's how I found this case. I don't know. I feel like I'm a little lost today. I always feel like I'm rusty after like taking a break. So let me stop yawning. So yes, we are back today. I feel like for a couple of my videos, I forgot to do a little disclaimer. So here's my disclaimer. Hello. So this video, obviously we will be talking about murder. If that is triggering for anybody, then I would recommend not watching this video. Nothing that I say in this video is meant to be disrespectful or to hurt anybody. This is all just information that I found online that I've thrown into a Word document that I've now sent out to you guys. That's my disclaimer. So this video, yes, I found just randomly. We are going to get started. Jesus. Today, we are going to be talking about Gavin Smith. So who was Gavin? So in many of the videos that I watched, Gavin is described as being this like all-American kind of person. He was like tall, blonde. I think he was 6'7" or something, like 6'7". Like he was like this tall, blonde, active, fit person. He was just like one of those people that can just like do anything. Like, you know, those people where they almost seem like perfect. Just one of those people where like everything just like came naturally. You know, even in college, Gavin played basketball, where he did amazing, obviously. He played for UCLA. I don't really know much about basketball, but I think that's impressive. I mean, there's a whole song like dedicated to UCLA, so.
She just moved to LA, go to UCLA, and she drive a Maserati.
I think that's good. But yes, he was on the UCLA basketball team. He was also on like the last national championship team in 1975. And after college, his goal was to really try to make it into the NBA. Oh no. I don't know if you guys noticed, I have 2 new friends back here, my little mermaids, but. Okay. I need to get myself together. I'm really like not here. Also, my notes make no sense. I did these like. I've been struggling, okay? I've been struggling. So Gavin, let's get back to him. Worked out every day, super healthy, was trying to make it into the NBA. Unfortunately, that did not happen for him, and his friends describe this as being like very difficult, obviously. I mean, when you want to do something and that goal is taken away from you, it's not really necessarily easy. And even when he found out that he wasn't going to be getting drafted to the NBA, Gavin just like disappeared into the mountains for like a few days and then like came back. I don't know, maybe he discovered himself. But you know, even with this like negative thing happening, he was just like ready to jump back into life and to find like the next great adventure. So he got a job being a caddy at this high society golf club. And I mean, at this golf club, naturally, there's lots of very famous, well-known, like important people. There are a lot of people that were in like the movie and film industry. And so this job being a caddy led to Gavin starting a job at Fox.
Gavin would ultimately find his place behind the scenes at Fox, starting from the bottom up.
When somebody looked at him and said, "Oh, you don't know much," he says, "Yeah, but in 6 months I'll know everything you know and I'll do it better." And he did.
Gavin worked his way up the ladder to become an affable, smart film distributor loved by all.
He was an honest, caring person. Give the shirt off of his back.
So he's really one of these people that just like took life by the reins and created their own destiny. He didn't like wait for life to happen for him. So he ended up having a 18-year career at 20th Century Fox, where he worked on movies like Avatar and Titanic. So like he really was doing something. Gavin really was described as being this honest and caring person who would do anything for just about anyone in his life. But I mean, just like anybody's life, it doesn't matter how perfect it looks on the outside. There's always internal things going on with like anybody. Nobody's life is perfect. Everybody has struggles. And this was how it was for Gavin and his family too. So Gavin was married. He had 3 boys. And Gavin also suffered from chronic back pain that he had like sustained from this previous injury that he had. And I think maybe because of all this and because of the stress that was going on, Gavin became addicted to his painkillers.
Gavin suffered chronic back pain from a previous injury.
Did he share any of his struggles with you?
Oh yeah, I mean, he would tell me how much pain he was in, and it's not good for me, Greg. I'm hurting bad.
Like millions who have become part of the same national epidemic, Gavin became addicted to painkillers.
As anybody who's been there will tell you, is the meds stop working. So you take more and you take more. And it got out of control. We couldn't live without him, and they weren't helping, and so he's taken too many.
Everything just like went downhill. They were having financial problems. They were just struggling. But in typical Gavin fashion, he decided to tackle this addiction head on, and he ended up going to rehab for his painkiller addiction. I mean, Gavin's marriage to his wife Lisa also wasn't doing great at this time. Gavin was said to be very depressed, and everything just really was going downhill. Yeah, life just wasn't easy for them. And while Gavin was in rehab, he ended up making a friend. This friend's name was Chandrika. Gavin and Chandrika met in rehab and ended up having an affair with each other. Gavin was still married at the time, and so was Chandrika. They were both married, and they met up and started hooking up with each other. And that's really when everything went from being bad to just really being catastrophic for everybody. Chandrika's husband had been to jail a few times. He was a convicted drug dealer. And I mean, she always said, or I guess they both said, that they were just together because of financial convenience. The relationship wasn't really anything anymore. They didn't really have a relationship. It was just financially easier for them to stay together. Yeah, they were just like separated, but still living together. I don't really know if I necessarily believe that, but that's what they say. And I mean, John Creech kind of seems like a skeezy guy. Like, good sir, oh, this chair hurts my butt so bad. Good sir was 39 years old and had told Chandrika that he fell in love with an 18-year-old, which is gross. I don't care like if it's legal, it's gross. Like if you're that old and you're falling in love or wanting to be with these like girls that still look like children, like 18-year-olds look young. And even if this 18-year-old didn't, like, it's just gross. It's weird. I just like it just feels like something's off about it. I don't know. People like that creep me out. I just don't agree with it. It's fucked. So Chandrika's husband was apparently in love with this 18-year-old and just did not care that she was sleeping with Gavin. And so on her end, all was good to go. Not so much on Gavin's end because he was still married. So one good thing is Gavin did end up getting over his addiction to his painkillers, so good for him. That's not easy. Unfortunately though, he just could not get rid of Chandrika, and I think really wanted to take the relationship further. Gavin ended up moving out of the family home, which was... Do you guys hear that? I think my grandpa's vacuuming my driveway. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's taking a... I really love the guy, he's so funny. Oh my god, he's always at my house doing random stuff. I'm sorry for that sound that you can probably hear. It is what it is right now. Hopefully it ends soon. Anyways, yeah, his sons were having a really hard Okay, so his sons were having a very difficult time with this. Naturally, it was probably very difficult for them, seeing their family just being broken up like that. They were struggling. The whole family was struggling. I mean, it's not easy going through these like family issues. So I mean, while all this was happening, Chandrika's husband, I guess, decided that he actually wasn't cool with Gavin being with his wife. I don't know, like, I don't get it. Like, it doesn't make sense. If it was like this like control thing, maybe he was, I mean, he must have been abusive or something because he's trying to control his wife. But I mean, they're not together, and he's also in love with an 18-year-old, so I don't fucking know. So I guess at some point, Chandrika's husband decided that he was not cool with her being with Gavin, even though he was sleeping with an 18-year-old, because he started making threats to Gavin. Yeah, so there was tension building. Chandrika's husband started threatening Gavin, threatening to beat him up, I guess, to cause him harm. He was just not okay with Gavin sleeping with his wife anymore. And so Lisa, like Gavin's wife, did something that I really just think is not chill. Like, she probably should not have done this. It seems kind of fucked. Lisa drove 2 of her sons to Chandrika's husband's house. Yeah, so Lisa like rolls up to the house. Her sons get out, knock on the door, and are pleading with Chandrika's husband, like, not to kill their dad. They're like, it's just, I don't know. It just seems very unsafe and messed up that she would do that. I mean, I don't have kids, but I would never put my kids in that situation. And I'm pretty sure the one was only 13 years old. Which is just, that's not right. I don't know. That's just, you shouldn't do that. Especially if this guy, like, is dangerous. Like, why would you do that? I don't know. Chandrika's husband ended up saying to the boys, it's a good thing you did this because you just saved your father's life. Gavin and Chandrika just, like, didn't stop sleeping together. Like, despite all this, they didn't stop. They stayed together. And then Gavin went missing. And nobody really knew what happened to him. Some people were just hoping that, you know, he just like disappeared again. Kind of what he, like when life gets a little difficult or he needs some space, he would just like disappear into the mountains, you know? People were like, maybe he just like went off for a little bit. And he would be back when things cooled down or when he started to feel better. There were also some people though that truly believed that this was a murder. Like, as soon as he went missing, they were like, he must have been killed. The detectives ended up getting phone records of Gavin's, and that's where they found Chandrika's number. So detectives went to Chandrika's house to try to see if she knew what had happened to Gavin. And she never let detectives in their house, so they just sat outside, and she basically said that she had no idea what happened to Gavin. She didn't know. But during this conversation is also when detectives learn about her husband. They find out that he's a drug dealer, a bodybuilder. He's kind of known for being this angry man. And they also found out that he was sending Gavin threatening emails. So detectives weren't getting anything from Chandrika. So they decided to do this like undercover operation. They had an informant meet up with Chandrika to talk. And during this conversation, she told them everything that had happened. And so basically, she tells this informant that her and Gavin met up at this location to hook up. They were sitting in the car, I think just kissing, whatever, it doesn't matter. They were sitting in a car in this like lover's lane. That's how detectives describe it. And Chandrika's husband, he must have been like a super abusive, just like controlling asshole, had this family plan where you could track the location of like, it's meant for I think your kids. In this case, he had it for his wife so that he knew where she was at all times, and ended up following the location that she was at where she was with Gavin. So he shows up to the location. Chandrika and Gavin are both sitting in the passenger seat, just kissing. She's sitting on his lap. John Creech rolls up. Chandrika says that he becomes angry and she gets out of the car. And that's when John Creech jumps on top of Gavin in the car, like is straddling him, and just starts beating him to death, basically. Only using his fist, which is just very disturbing. Like, I feel like you would read, like, it would be, that would be a terrible way to go. Yeah. And then, you know, John Creech gets out of the car and looks at Chandrika and says, "You're next." This is what she's telling the informant. And so then they leave. Chandrika says that her husband doesn't actually end up doing anything physical to her, but he does demand her to drive him back to like the scene of the incident. And that's when they went back to the car and checked Gavin's pulse, and he was in fact dead. And so John Creech gets into Gavin's car, drives the vehicle back to his place, and that's when him and Chandrika burn their clothes that they were wearing, so all the evidence from that is gone. I'm sorry, it's going again, I can't help it. So John Creech is panicked. I mean, he did just fucking kill somebody. And that's when he calls one of his friends. And so the friend agrees to help him hide Gavin's body, but it's like, "You can't store the car here, like I don't want the car at my house." So John like hits up one of his friends, one of his like bodybuilding friends, and is like, "Hey, can I store this car at your place?" The friend agrees. He stores the car at his friend's house. And so that's where the car sits with Gavin's body. It sits there for 5 days. And then John decides that he needs to find a different place to put everything, like he can't just stay at his friend's house. So John rents a U-Haul and puts the body in the U-Haul and takes it up to an area called Palmdale, where he buries it by himself. So those are 3 other people that were involved. So 5 people in total, really. Like, these people really couldn't say that they didn't know what was going on. I could see some people saying, you know, that like, "Oh, my friend just stored a car here and I didn't know that it was like part of this murder investigation," because 5 days, there was a body sitting in a car in your garage for 5 days. Like, you had to have known. Like, the decomposition that would have happened would have just not, like, you had to, like, you would have had to have known. There's no way that you couldn't have smelled that, right? Right? And no one said anything, presumably because like no one else wanted to get charged with it, but I don't really know. Like, truly, if anyone came to me and was like, "I killed somebody," I'd be going to the police right away. 100%. Don't ever tell me that you've killed anybody, because I will call the cops. And yeah, so Chandrika claimed that she like witnessed the murder happen, obviously, but she didn't really know much about the aftermath that happened. She like didn't really know about like the cars and the U-Haul, and she wasn't there for any of that. She was just there for the initial incident. She did say though that John told her where he had buried the body, and it was somewhere under these like power lines. And so detectives, like, although they knew these rough details, they really didn't have any solid evidence to go on. They couldn't find the body. They couldn't find the car, they couldn't find like any of it, and they didn't want to risk ruining the investigation and like letting all these different people know that they knew what was going on. So it took a while for them to actually start to build the case and find evidence as to what happened. Like, really at this point, even though they had heard all these things, like, it was still up in the air if Gavin was murdered or was just missing at this point, because there was no hard evidence. So it was almost a year after Gavin's disappearance when investigators got a lead on the case. They got a tip that there was a Mercedes-Benz like in the storage locker. So they show up to the storage locker, and that's where they find the Mercedes covered in blood, but with no like body in it. So far it seems like the story that Chandrika told them is true. They also found John Creech's DNA in the vehicle. All that was left was to find the body. So it took another 1.5 years after investigators found the car for them to find Gavin Smith's body. And they only found it because there was a hiker that was walking his dog in this area, and this dog ended up finding a skull. And that is where the shallow grave of Gavin Smith was found. His body was just bones at this point. It had been 2.5 years since his death, which is a really long time. And I mean, at this time, John Creech was imprisoned again on drug-related charges, so he was pretty easy to find. They didn't really have to worry about him disappearing at all, so that they couldn't find him. And they had tons of evidence. They had the car, they had the body, they had Chandrika's testimony, and they had cell phone records that put John Creech in the area that Chandrika described during the time of Gavin's death. So they really had like a pretty solid case at this point. yeah, so it goes to trial, and John Creech is found guilty of voluntary manslaughter. The jury believes that this was a crime of passion. None of it was planned out, even though he was like sending Gavin threatening emails. So I mean, it seems like maybe it was a little bit, and he was like watching where his wife was. I don't know, it seems a little premeditated, but whatever. He was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Because of this, John Creech was only given 11 years in jail, which really is not much for killing somebody. And yeah, that is that. That is the murder of Gavin Smith. I don't even know, that poor family. And for John Creech to only get 11 years, like, oh my god. That just does not seem long enough to me. I don't know. That is that. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing evening, night, wherever the hell you are. I hope you have a great time. Stay safe out there. And I will see you all later. Okie doke. Bye-bye.